let it be our intention to learn, to be uplifted by this energy, to help us be more intentional in our lives and in our interactions with other people. So, what we're going to cover today is, Sag Energy 101, what it's all about, Sagittarius through the 12 houses. So, you can really see a snapshot, of how this energy plays out in your life based on your Sag placement. How do you keep saying Saturn, Sagittarius energy for good, body parts that are ruled by Sag, self-care practices that help to channel Sag energy, herbal medicine that encourages balance for Sag. I know a lot of the astrology apps like only show the signs that have planets, which makes it seem like if you don't have a planet in that particular sign, like you don't have its energy, and that's not the case. We have all of the signs, all of the energies, all of the planetary energies. So we'll get right to it. So Sag is the ninth house sign of the zodiac in tropical astrology in the Northern Hemisphere. It occurs at the end of fall. Like all mutable signs, it occurs in the transitions between one season and another. It's changeable, restless, vacillating, and flexible. Mutable signs require constant stimulation, looking for new focal points, like to channel their energy into. Like Gemini needs new ideas and like riveting conversations. Virgo always has a box to check, a good, self-improvement project. Sagittarius embarks on one quest after another. Sagittarius is the sign energy and like the developmental stage where we seek new truths, leaving the territory of the eighth house initiation, where we have deeply felt experiences and what happens to us, like this is what happens to us when we merge and we break away from others. We've been ripped open in new ways in the eighth house energy. We're born again, and we need to discover ourselves in the world from, this new identity. So it's like, who am I now? What's the meaning of life now? What haven't I experienced? These are some Sagittarian questions, because whatever wounds we've healed, fears and truths that we were forced to face in the eighth house, they turn our world on its head. Ideas that we believed as truths were proven false or even more true. We faced our shadow sides and realized the potential for darkness in us, and it is in all of us. So now what? Scorpio in the eighth house is the energy kind of like, oh shit. And Sag is that energy of our aha moments and experiences. It's ruled by Jupiter, the planet of the higher mind, expansion, growth, optimism. Jupiter enlarges and exaggerates everything and assumes success too. This is the planet of best case scenarios. And honestly, after coming out of some kind of scorpionic experience, we need a break. We need some positivity and some lightness. If you have, an idea to run a local ice cream shop, like Jupiter is like, nah, go global. An intimate birthday gathering, something, it turns into a full-blown dinner party with guest list, catering, a band. One drink turns into 10 and you're just not even bothering to go to bed. Jupiter doesn't do small, doesn't comprehend quaint. Jupiter turns your ceiling into your new floor. Like, think about that line. Jupiter turns your ceiling, what you perceive to be your limit, what you think is the top, is how high you can go, into your new floor. And the way Jupiter expresses this energy through Sag is through our identities, our beliefs, our life philosophy. Everyone says, Sag loves freedom, and this is true, but why? Sagittarius energy is trying to liberate itself from the confines of its old identity, old beliefs, and is looking for new meaning in life. It's the seeker and the archer. The symbol of Sagittarius is the archer, the centaur, half human, half animal, bow and arrow in hand, pointed heavenward toward a target we can't necessarily see with our eyes, but they can. The arrow isn't pointed just toward the sky. The intention is to shoot the arrow beyond what one can see. The sky is the floor, not the ceiling. I hope that makes sense. It is the I see, I perceive energy, knowing that there is more, that there are realities and truths beyond what one can feel and taste and touch. There is territory we haven't explored, and there are truths about this human experience that we haven't considered, much less experienced. Sagittarius is inherently optimistic, like to point your arrow toward heaven and believe that it will reach its destination, like how could that not be optimistic? That symbol alone, like it really represents faith and trust and implies that you know that there's more to life. Like its other fire signs, Sagittarius is a place in our charts, our personalities that feeds our vitality. When we honor the motivations and urges of Sag, we feel invigorated. We have a new lease on life. We want to keep going, we want to keep living. All fire signs in some way, represent enthusiasm and excitement and faith and honesty and zest, radiance and will. If we use like the metaphor of a campfire, the logs are stacked, we're ready with the match. Aries energy is like adding lighter fluid. Boom, get it going quickly, naturally with a little bit of danger involved. Leo is when the fire is roaring and it captivates everyone's attention. It's mesmerizing. And then Sag is when the fire starts to die down and you're not ready to turn in though, so you need to add fresh logs. Here we go. This is what Sag energy asks us to do. Add fresh logs to our internal fire because our enthusiasm for life may be dwindling, or, if we're still here, then, we have work to do. We have meaning and purpose to find, questions that need answering. Sag is where we keep the adventure going because we're still breathing. Remember that while, we're all in these spiritual journeys too, we're not all at the same mile marker. Some folks are at the starting line, others are crossing mile 100, like in other words, like some are in pre-K, some are in graduate school in terms of their current understanding. So I knew these new experiences, they broaden our horizons, they lead to new conclusions that feel true for you. It doesn't mean that it's true for everyone in their current reality, in the current stage of their development. Sagittarius can get dogmatic when that's happening, it's time to add new logs to the fire. You've hit a ceiling. One more thing to note about fire signs, fire needs release and it needs oxygen. Without oxygen, it goes out. And when it's confined with oxygen, but no release, that's when we have explosions, right? This happens to us too in our fire energy. The reasons for are slightly different, which each of the fire signs, but a common thread with all of them is rage. Aries' internal rage is related to fear. Leo's is resistance to vulnerability. And with Sag, just because it's stuck under a ceiling, it has chosen not to break through. A theme song for Sag like just kept ringing in my head, and it could be because I'm listening to this album all the time, is My Shot from Hamilton. And it's really just the line, I'm not throwing away my shot, that resonates with me here. Whether it's adding a log to the fire or shooting your arrow, you're at a crossroads with Sag. You can stay in this old skin, this old mindset, or you can do something that reignites you. You can shoot your shot. You can take that leap. You are, in this lifetime, one time. Will you have more, infinitely more lifetimes? Probably. But this now reality is the one you're living. So live it. When Sag energy is balanced, it's outgoing and friendly, philosophical, freedom-loving, intuitive, a traveler, direct, think about that arrow, spiritual later in life, open to new experiences, willing to take a chance and adventurous. When Sag energy is imbalanced, it procrastinates, is dogmatic, overindulgent, compulsively, like non-committal, when it really hasn't realized like what it's truly seeking is beyond this material plane, superficial, hyperactive, rambling, and thinks that true for self means true for all. So now we're going to look at Sagittarius through the houses. Hold on, Niles is knocking at the door. And I want you to just keep the things in mind I was talking about, like in your mind as we go around the chart and where Sagittarius shows up for you in your natal chart. Where you see Sagittarius in your chart, is where you have that urge to broaden your horizons. So these are the astrological houses. I'm going to go around the wheel and really talk about what each house represents in terms of the area of life and the personality that is being developed in these houses. And we can see how Sag shows up a little bit. This is the first house. The first house is the place of action, the first place of action in our identities. It's the framework of who we are, our outlook on the world, how we naturally demonstrate our identities. It also represents our appearance, our disposition, our manner, our body's constitution, our natural forms of initiative and leadership, and how we naturally express ourselves. So like life with Sag rising, Life is an adventure in this placement. Now, whether one views, the playground, views it as a playground or a minefield, kind of depends on planetary placements. But the larger idea with Sag rising, is that you came here to experience the totality of what life has to offer for where you are on your soul's journey. The person with this placement likely, loves to travel, be it in that literal sense of like hopping on planes, exploring new places and cultures. They also might love to travel through reading, maybe even television and film, like just being immersed in stories that expose us to new worlds, new people, new cuisines, with the mind always itching to go someplace. You could see procrastination, disorganization, and restlessness with this placement too, though a strong Saturn in the chart can mitigate those tendencies. Second house. The second house is the house of material security. It's how we all feel like secure and stable while being in these physical bodies, living on, planet Earth in this lifetime. It's the tangible things that matter with this house somewhat that help us to feel secure. Our resources, our money, our possessions, the things we own and value, our spending and earning capacity, our desire to control the things and people within our reach, because if we can control them, we feel like that helps us feel more secure. It's also your giftedness, how you can draw from your own innate personality and skills to create the things that help you feel more materially secure. Scorpio's on the rising here, but Saturn's in the second house. I could see someone generous with resources, time, and money here. It's a good combination of like realistic earning and spending with faith and understanding that there will always be replenishment. This person is willing to share, likely does more than just earn from a 9 to 5. Like, remember, everywhere Sag shows up, there's the urge to stretch beyond what we think we know, to broaden those horizons. Think of like Forex and Bitcoin and stock trading. Like, that would be a good example of how Sag energy is expressed in this house. And certainly whatever it is, it's backed by a lot of intuition and a lot of faith. Third house, this house is all about how we think based on the people we associated with in our early environment. In this house, it's how our assumptions and perceptions of our world were first created, how we exchanged and assimilated information in that early environment. It's not so much like whether or not somebody's intelligent. It's more about like, how did you form your unique intelligence? This house also signifies your early education, your early learning environment, your siblings and attitudes toward them. Short journeys and trips, memory, speech, how you express yourself through writing, speaking, other forms of communication, and your taken for granted skills. We often take for granted, the things that are closest to us. So with Sag in the third, which means Libra's on the rising, a judicious mind fit for a lawyer with Libra on the rising in this placement. I see someone who can pierce to the heart of the matter. It's a seeing beyond the veil kind of energy and mental curiosity, where superficial kinds of truths cannot be accepted as truth at all. Perhaps an avid reader, one who stumbles upon new experiences right in their own neighborhood. Like New York is a good example of this kind of energy, in that you can go 3 blocks in a different direction than your normal, walking commute, and you're in a whole new world. This person can, but doesn't have to, get on planes to broaden their horizons. They can do so right within the relationships they have with different folks in different circles. Fourth house, this house is the house of home and all domestic affairs, both the childhood homes, that we grow up in, and the types of home environment we are likely to create as adults. It's our family, upbringing, our needs for privacy and peace, real estate, ancestry, lineage, and the subconscious programming that we learn from our families in these early environments. How do we feel about what we experienced with our families, and what action do we take to like either perpetuate or release ourselves from those records and those cycles? Virgo's on the rising, probably the sign that is the most consumed with health, self-improvement, and service. That's Virgo. So Virgo on the rising, Sag placement here, someone who needs like a firm ground under their feet in order to explore what is beyond. I think home is like one place at a time, but like moving to different locations could definitely be in the picture for this person, perhaps across country or across the world. Maybe you moved a lot as a child, or choose to do so as an adult. I could see this person like finding peace and nurturing and privacy and comfort within a sanctuary of sorts that they make inside of their home. This person needs space in every sense of that word, in which they can do that intuitive, deep thinking, like access the higher mind that helps them break those childhood patterns. Fifth house is the house of creativity, creative expression. Another way to think of this house is like, what do you do to leave your mark on the world? It's your, I was here, here's proof of my existence. It's your self-expression, the things that bear your name and personal stamp. For some, that's children. For others, like Ava DuVernay, that's films. It also represents love affairs, play, recreation, theater, drama. It's a stage in this house. Amusement. In some ways, there's an underlying quality, though, about our self-worth with this house, because we tend to associate worth with what we can do, what we can make, what we can create. It's also the house of hidden karma. What you put out will likely return to you through that which you create. And so Leo is on the rising. All of the fire signs have some kind of quality of impulsivity within them. And like I once did a reading for a woman with this placement, Leo in the rising, Sag in the fifth house. And in it, I said, this is the type of energy where, you'd be off on a trip, could meet somebody, have your fun, and get pregnant. That's exactly what happened about a year later. Of course, there are many ways this energy could be expressed, but suffice it to say that with Leo's kind of urge and drive for attention combined with Sag's urge for freedom and fun, it would behoove this person with this placement, to pause before taking action in the heat of the moment. Like, think before you hit go. And with that said, what this person creates too takes them far outside of what you think what is true for you. So either way, I mean, it really is a win-win, but it's a helpful piece of advice to pause. Sixth house, this is the house of health, self-care, our capacity to handle the mundane, day-to-day work. Like, how do we adjust? Resist or become overwhelmed by the demands of daily life. Everything in this house is under your control. It's your work, it's your health, your food, your clothing, your comforts of life, your pets, your employer, like your employees. You can change all those things. Your dependents and your working conditions. What happens here basically determines how and if we are able to be of service to others from a place of fullness, not emptiness. Everything in this house contributes to our capacity to work, to serve, and to be healthy. Cancer is on the rising. Routine fatigue is what this placement is trying to avoid. Work that really allows this person to travel, be it local travel or otherwise, like being around people that take this person out of their mundane and expose them to new perspectives will keep them energized about life and the duties that they have to handle. With Cancer on the rising combined with Saturn's overindulgence, watch out for emotional eating, overeating, over drinking. Sorry, still letting folks in. A good lesson for this energy placement here is to learn to appreciate the freedom that comes with discipline. So while you might get bored with routine and the mundane, don't invite disruption, just like in the form of chaos and disorganization, just for the sake of feeling free. Now you're just trapped in another pattern, in another box. The seventh house is the house about how we behave in one-to-one relationships. It's our closest relationships, those with spouses, even best friends, business partners, known enemies. It's our marriages and partnerships, really like close relationships, but not necessarily family unless you also work with them, and not quite just like friends or your wider social network unless you also work with them. This house represents our cooperation with others who are close to us, or lack of cooperation. It's our we consciousness as opposed to the I am consciousness of the first house. You are in partnership in this house. It rules the lower courts. Like, really think about small claims courts. You're suing or being sued by someone who's close to you. This house is all about how you learn about yourself through these close relationships. Gemini is on the rising, definitely forming relationships with people from lots of different backgrounds and cultures. Everyone wants to feel as if they belong. This person, like, even with a strong kind of like aversion to being tied down, does enjoy partnerships so long as the partners like understand their nature, which is not necessarily like the freedom to sleep around. Like, it's not like that, but understanding that like having different types of close relationships is important. The person probably doesn't have just like, some people, they're married. It's like the the person that they're married to, that's their one person. This person's probably not like that, where they just have one person that they go to and lean on for everything. They probably have like many deep relationships that give them the full experience of belonging that they need. Another expression could be polyamory, or just like, or not partnering up at all for fear of losing freedom. Eighth house is about how people save themselves. This is, sorry, I'm still hitting the emit button. This is, think about like the Christian expression, you know, Jesus saves, but here, like, you save yourself. It's the house where people seek inner stability, emotional and soul security by spiritual, magical, material means. So some people turn to religion, some people turn to sex, some people turn to the occult, some people turn to money in the forms of like joint finances, loans, inheritances. Where do you turn when you need to feel emotionally and spiritually secure? And it's also the house of like our deeply felt personal experiences, our rebirths, our inner deaths, because when you realize like that the means that you've been turning to feel emotionally secure really aren't serving you or working for you, you have to die to that old self and be reborn. Taurus is on the rising. You know, what happens when we merge with another and we dissolve into another is also a quality of this house. We feel obligated in many ways around this house. This house has rulership over those kind of experiences too. And so with Taurus on the rising, like being a sign of accumulation with some implications around money, one could see eighth house Sag person, you know, coming into money from other people. Sag here is sensual, desiring sex as a means of understanding the psychology of themselves as well as others. Sex magic comes up. You know, Taurus is such a sensual sign, and Sag wants to break ceilings. So what happens when we hang from the ceiling? Like, I'm being funny, but like seriously, like there's this explorative energy with Sag that wants to know, like, well, what will happen when we do certain things together, when we stretch our limits together? Scorpio is that. Scorpio like is the first layer of this energy. It always wants to do like go to the most intense and raw place. So that could be an interesting combination. Ninth house. This is the house where we choose how we choose to learn about ourselves. It's the superconscious mind, education that we choose. It's going beyond our horizons for self-discovery and identification. You know, again, moving from that eighth house of regeneration, death, rebirth. This is the house where we say, okay, I'm reborn. And now what does this new me have to do? You need to learn about this new self, this new identity. So this house is associated with our religious and philosophical attitudes, foreign travel, long journeys, educational experiences. You choose like higher education apprenticeships, and it's also your intuition, your spiritual visions and publication. It's the house of self-understanding and those experiences that take you outside of what you think you know. Aries rising, this is the natural home of Sagittarius. So you see the quintessential Sag energy here, the jet setter, the philosopher, the one who loves to learn about and experience everything that's out there. Aries rising gives this person endless energy to question and pursue the answers. You know, I've seen this energy though on a couple of occasions, like build that inner rage because of that dogmatism, like putting itself in its own rigid box of beliefs, losing their inherent optimism. It's kind of sad because you start to see that vitality, that fiery force drained from them, and also really you feel the internal rage building. They start to believe that what they're seeing with their eyes in the world, you know, is all there is. The violence, the oppression, the injustices of this world. And they want liberation from that so badly. But, you know, we keep our eyes so focused on the problems, we don't have access to the solutions. So I think a good just like lesson for Sag here is to remember it's about using that arrow to break those ceilings. We have to pierce through the veil with this energy and remember that there are multiple realities even within this reality. 10th house, this is the house about what you do in the world, or rather how you're known for what you do in the world. It's your house of career and vocation, the work you get paid to do, and like how do you fill in the blanks when you introduce yourself at like a networking event? Hi, I'm Salima. I'm an herbalist, astrologer, spiritual teacher. Like, how do you fill in those blanks? The 10th house rules our reputation, our position in the world, how the public views you in your calling and how you're contributing to society. It's like your mission. Like, it's so forward facing too that in this house, there's some implications around approval and seeking approval. Pisces is on the rising here. Friendly, outgoing, charming can help Sag in the 10th house of career for sure. With Pisces, the serve or suffer sign on the rising, no one really knows, or like no one like who comes in contact with this 10th house Sag in the realm of mission will know just how much energy combination, like how much this person broods over whether or not they're being helpful and being of service to others. The ambition to rise to the top for this placement is not necessarily for power or recognition, rather for like how many people can I help, for the love of the work. It's very mission driven energy. 11th house, this is all about who we are in group settings. Do we feel secure and stable when we're around friends, acquaintances, doing group projects? Or are we only secure when we're around like-minded people? It's the house of how we learn about who we are when we're in an us collective situation. It's associated with our group involvement, our friendships, our social relationships, creative group expression, our humanitarian ideals and our global awareness. It's our hopes and wishes, projects and ambitions for the collective, and where we feel we're most self-satisfied, because it's kind of like that save the world energy where we all innately want to do something good that would change the world. Aquarius is on the rising, ruler of this house. So there's a lot of ease in relationships that and kind of stay relatively superficial with this placement. This person is direct and unattached, but willing to do the work to get the job done. I could see this person contributing ideas that are outside of the box, as it relates to the collective work, accomplishment, and dream building. This person likely has strong boundaries, is careful not to mix business with personal life. They might be a leader in the community, and because of their friendly public nature, they likely have just a wide social network. And then lastly, we have the 12th house. This house is all about what lies in our subconscious that needs to be awakened so that we can journey on to the next life, the next soul cycle in our evolution. This is the house of, if you envision like a body of water, it's not the ocean, but a large body of water, and you see a ripple on the surface and you don't know the source, what created that ripple. This is the house of that unknown source. It's so deep below the surface of the water. It's the things that are so ingrained in us, we barely notice they're unfolding, but they tend to show up in bothersome ways in our lives, calling for our attention. Just because it's underneath the surface doesn't mean it's unreachable. Like, this house is affiliated with the subconscious mind, our spirituality, our psychic abilities, our unconscious habits, confinement, that self-undoing, prisons and hospitals. Its influence is not necessarily under our control yet, but they do require our transcendence. Capricorn is on the rising. I think this is a tougher placement for broadening the horizons because Capricorn likes paths that are proven. Capricorn is kind of a see it to believe it energy, likes to have all of the information before making a step. The self-undoing here is holding itself back, being so conservative and needing to have everything in order. A huge part of how we build, build faith and how we learn to trust our faith is by taking that step into the unknown with the information that we have. And that information is never going to include what's going to happen in the future, what's going to be the result, but you move forward anyway. Capricorn is very past oriented, like where Sag is future oriented. So that Cap in this person makes decisions, or wants to make all decisions rather based on what has been. But the Sag in this person wants to explore, well, what can be. So how do we use Sag energy for good? Sagittarius can show us how to not take life so seriously, to have fun, to leap. That expression like leap and the net will appear. Well, lately, I've been saying to Tammy, like, forget the net. Like, if you think about trapeze artists, or if you've seen Cirque du Soleil, when they land on the net, like, it engulfs them to soften the landing. I don't want a soft landing. In true, I'm a Sag rising fashion, I'm like, forget the net. I want to leap and let a plane appear to take me to new heights. I want to soar. So there's that optimism, which is something else that Sag can definitely teach us. Even when, something has not turned out the way you expected, you're still okay, or you will be okay. Sagittarius urges us to try. If you live to see your 95th birthday, like, you don't want to look back at your life with regret, wondering what would have happened had you taken the risk. Medical astrology, So here's what it starts to look like when Sag is out of balance. So in medical astrology, like all of the signs have rulerships over different body parts, and the planets, which we're not going into detail, they rule the physiology and the pathophysiology. The planets alter the function of those body parts in different ways. But I'm just going to talk about the sign and what some of the common physical ailments are for Sag. Sag rules the hips and thighs. So just think about how much you need the movement of the hips and thighs in order to be an archer. Like practice archery is a good way to have like a process for understanding Sag energy is practicing archery, but how much you need this hip and thigh energy to move. The liver, the femur, butt, the cerebrum, lower regions of the spine, the sciatic nerve, our reasoning powers, integration of the endocrine and nervous systems to give a meaningful response to stimuli, locomotion, lower spinal cord, ability of the eye to focus. Think about aiming the direction of that arrow. Sag takes a little bit longer to recuperate, like it's very active and requires a lot of rest. What Sag imbalances can produce locomotor ataxia, and this is the inability to precisely control one's own bodily movements. Sciatica, rheumatism, hip diseases. Furthermore, as you know, as each sign has an influence upon the opposite, afflictions in Sag may also, cause what's opposite of Sag is Gemini. So it might also cause pulmonary troubles. Broken bones are caused by Sag, sports injuries, hip and thigh injuries, brain maladies, both physical and mental, lung conditions like tuberculosis. These are just examples. It's not an absolute with medical astrology. I want you all to think that it's not an absolute. Everything is possibility and how we're expressing the energies. What balances Sag energy? Physical recreation and exercise, moderate but regular. This sign tends to overexert and overdo. So moderation is something to be learned. Walking exercises are very good. Hiking, elevating and philosophical literature. I would even include like film. This is like not a trash TV kind of energy. Blood cleansers are good. We'll get into some of that with the herbal medicine. And then, don't procrastinate. It's just not worth it. Especially like with Sag and Gemini, they're on the same spectrum, same pole. They're both nervous system oriented. So there's heightened nervous system energy. So procrastination is just, it's not great, y'all. It's not great. And I'm speaking as the one who just finished this presentation literally like 8 minutes before I hit begin on Zoom. So it's just not worth it. When you think about the Sag energy in your chart, ask yourself, where am I shooting my arrow? And really think about what it's like to be an archer. It takes a lot of stability. It takes a lot of focus. It takes a lot of exhale. I don't know if anyone has practiced archery. I did archery in summer camp as a child. And where Gemini, just talking about in context of the opposite, where Gemini is like the inhale breath, Sagittarius is the exhale. You cannot shoot your shot and breathe in at the same time. You have to relax, you drop the shoulders, and you have to be like steady in your sight and in your positioning. And that's Sag. Like think about where you're shooting your shot and get yourself in a ready position to be able to do that. Because then you're really exhibiting like, this is the energy of faith. I'm like, I'm going to shoot this because it's not, you're not shooting it towards like a target symbol. It is, you're piercing that ceiling. So you don't really know what's beyond, but you know that it's for you. Where can you turn the ceiling into the floor? And just what's something, this basic with Sag, what's something new that I can learn? For herbal medicine, I didn't come up with a blend, but I did think about, these would be like individual tinctures. To move the liver energy, Sag is one of the signs that is ruled by the liver. And all of these are primarily herbs that support the liver, which, the liver has, we can't even go into that. It still has so many functions in the body. And where it's the seat of our anger and the seat of our rage. So as a fire sign, it's one of the fire signs, I think it's always really supportive to move that stuck anger. And sometimes it's anger that we're not even in rage that we're not consciously aware of. And so I included just those as like, you would do them as like single tinctures, just get a burdock tincture or make your own. This is not a blend, don't mix them, it's not necessary. That'll be that doing too much energy. And so yeah, choose one, you can do some research and choose one that resonates. Burdock is probably And dandelion are probably the most safe for most people, the least amount of contraindications. And then support for the nervous system are nervines that are relaxing and, depending on the dosage, somewhat sedating. And this is because, Sag, with it being on the spectrum of energy with Gemini, again, it's heightened nervous system stimulation. And so we want to sedate, we want to sedate, we want to relax the nervous system. We want to reduce some of that internal stress and internal anxiety, and help with that exhale breath where we feel like we can take the shot. And again, as singles, most of these can be, not this one, this would be a tincture, but these can be taken as single infusions, just like a cup of tea.